Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm the owner of Classic Shoe and Leather Service in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a third-generation cobbler with over 30 years experience. Our facility repairs all leather items. Come on in. Let's see what we're repairing today. So today we have a lovely job for you. What we're going to do is we're going to put in some elastic gussets and a pair of boots. The boots are a little past knee high. And what we need to do is we're actually going to take and put in a V-style gusset coming down the back seam of the zipper. We're going to fold all the seams back in, make it look really pretty. Okay, so what we want to do to start off with is really simple. As we see, the seam is right here. We're just going to start and break that loose right down the center. Nice sharp knife. I sharpened this a little while ago, so getting it started. That's always the more difficult part of the job because you got to kind of bust through that first little layer very carefully. Make sure you're not cutting more than you're supposed to. Let's get that open. See how the seam starts to open up like that. Once you get it a little bit open, it gets a lot easier. Easier to slip the knife in. Okay. So now that's open, we want to go back up to the top seam. Now the top seam is open. Gently come around the top there because this is where you can really cut things and damage them. Back into the lining. And we're open. That's what we want. So once it pops open like that, then it's very, very easy, which is also kind of, you got to be real careful because you don't want to go too low. All right, and you see the ribbon right here. That's your seam ribbon. Be very careful with that. Okay, so the client wants to have a gusset that is 3 inches across. As her thigh is a little bit bigger than what the boot is, and it's a little bit bigger than what time will allow for stretching, because stretching takes a little bit more time than doing a job like this. So she needs this a little bit rapidly. The best way to do it is to install a gusset to enlarge the portion, but she still wants the boot to fit her leg properly. So she doesn't want to just put in something. She wants to put in something that's going to grip her leg, that's going to feel good, that's not going to tear the backside of her thigh up or anything like that, but it's also going to allow the boot to grip the top of her thigh and her knee so it still looks the way that it's supposed to. So what we're going to do, she wants 3 inches across and she wants to do the maximum depth. We typically never go more than about 6 inches. I don't really find that it's necessary. I'm going to go about 5.5, so that's where our mark is going to be. Didn't mean to throw the ruler quite that hard, but that's the way it goes. All right, so come down here to the bottom seam. Just want to make her little end mark right there. Open up that seam. Nice and easy. There we go. All right. And we're going to bring it down to there. You can see that if you listen, that little pop pop that you hear, that's the sound of the knife cutting the stitches. That's exactly what you want to hear. You don't want to hear a slice, because that's the sound of the knife cutting the leather, which is not what we want. All right, so listen again. Nice sharp knife going against stitches. Sorry about the phone call. It's only got one more. You can handle it. I believe in you. You made it all the way through. All right, cool. Now let's lay this out right here. Measure once again, make sure that we didn't go too far or too shallow. Kind of like Goldilocks. It's good to get it just right. All right, and let's see, top seam is right here at 5.5 inches. Bottom seam, I'm pulling on the tape. Now it's at 5.5 inches. Okay, so now we'll, as always, want to pick our stitches. Like that. Did I bring my rubber? I don't think I brought my rubber. That's the one thing we forgot. Oh, here it is. All right. And go through and see the rubber collects. This is just gum crepe. It collects the stitches like that, and you can pull them back off. It's a real quick, easy way to pull stitches from a thin material like this without doing any damage, which we definitely don't want to do. And there might be 1 or 2 left over that you can come back and get, but it'll get the majority of them real fast. All right, we do that with the lining as well. Pull that apart. Definitely want to pull that apart. All right, stitch is pulled on that side. Now what I'm going to do here, while I'm pulling the stitches, I'm going to explain. I'm going to do one boot and go through the full process, put the gusset in, and show you the comparison to the other boot. Show you exactly what the difference is. It's always nice to see a comparison. You can go back and forth on the video when you're doing that, but side by side is pretty cool. All right, so almost done picking stitches. And see, it doesn't hurt the suede or anything like that. Stitches are being stubborn. Just do not want to come out for anything. There we go. Finally. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So we want to create a nice smooth edge. So the easiest way to create a nice smooth edge on these, just replicate the one that's already there. So we're just going to do a rolled edge. Real simple. Cotton swab. A little bit of glue. Take this edge, roll it over, so that it goes back in the same position it was before. And see, that looks pretty. That looks nice. That looks a lot nicer than leaving something like that and leaving that stitched. So, make it nice and pretty. It's supposed to be aesthetically pleasing as well as functional. So that's one of the things that people all in this industry need to understand. It's not just about making it work. You got to make it look good too. You got to make it look good and work. Both of them are equally important. All right. A little more glue on the inside edge here. Roll this over and do the same thing to the other one. In fact, I'm going to go ahead, since this needs to dry for a second, and glue this one right here, so I can fold them both over. If I actually have the talent to make it happen. There's a possibility. I love jinxing myself while I'm on camera. All right. Come back, roll this edge as well. Nice even roll. Just like that. The seam right there will be the hardest part because it'll turn thick. But we're going to smooth that out and thin that out after we put the gusset in there when we come and bang down the seams to make them nice and smooth. All right. Got that lining rolled in. Can I do the other one? Yeah, it's working. I love saying that. It's much better than the other phrases, which can be colorful as well, but not always as positive. All right, so that seam's done. One more seam, and we will cut our gusset and start installing that, which is the exciting part. Aren't we all excited? We're looking forward to it. I certainly am. Mainly because after this video, I'm getting food. Yeah. Food's nice. All right. So see how this seam right here was already there. That's why I want you to see it from the other side. See how it's real dark coming up to this line, and then it's not. That's because the glue line from the original, the skiver line that they put in there, it gets sanded and skivered, and that leaves it a little rougher suede than what the original was. That's why you want to fold this over. But folding it right on that line there, the separation point between the two scratches, the two different levels of suede, that really helps you to maximize your material while still keeping it aesthetically pleasing. So that's how you keep your measurements in proper. All right, everything is seamed down. Now, once again, the client wanted it to be 3 inches across. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make it about 4 inches across at the top and taper it in towards the bottom. We're going to set it on one side and then let that dry for a second, set it on the other side. I'm going to stitch it and then clean it up. All right. Sorry. All right, and we're going to come down to about 5.5 inches, and that's 2 inches in the center. That's right here. All right, so what I did was we have 4 inches at the top. That gives us 1/2 inch on each side for our seam allowance going in. At 5.5 inches, which is where this, where our bottom portion is, where we're going to tab in, is right here. Okay, so we measured from the middle right there at 2.5 or at 2 inches. Now we're going to go 1/2 inch out on our seam right here, and we're going to make our line right there. We're going to go back 1/2 inch out on this side, and we're going to make our line right there. Now, theoretically, we should end up with a proper seam, or a proper seam distance for our elastic. I say theoretically because I have been doing this business for over 30 years and have found that it doesn't always work out the way it's supposed to. but it most of the time does. If you follow the rules. All right, let's find out if it works. It's a good idea to get the seam tape out of the way. Half inch, half an inch. Ah, beautiful. That will do very nice. And that looks like it looks good all the way down. All right, so the best way to do this is you want to remove that. You want to not worry about your seam tape anymore right here. It's going to get actually cut off. Right just above the mark, just above the mark here. Don't cut the boot. All right, so now you're going to do bead glue here and a bead glue here underneath the seam line. You don't want your glue in the seam line, okay? Now this glue is mostly just to hold the piece of elastic in place long enough for you to stitch it. It is not actually meant to hold the elastic in place. That's a misnomer. The stitches hold it in place. If the glue holds it in place, then what happens is as the client is breaking in the boot to make it fit their personal body, the glue will impede that. It will stand in the way. It will make it bunch in the wrong places because it's not wanting to mold with the body properly. The stitches, on the other hand, will move and mold. They'll bend a little bit. They'll shift a little bit. They'll allow the leather to shift around the stitches. Therefore, that will much better mold to the client's leg. All right, so that's together now. Enough for a stitch. So we're going to flip it over. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Ah, that's not good. Okay, so you see this? This is glue on suede. Now, you notice that I didn't touch it, didn't do anything to it, didn't take care of it. You know why? Because you let it dry. That's the number one thing that people, I have seen over and over again do with glue on suede is, oh, I gotta do something right away. Well, not really, because in all honesty, with a latex cement like this, or a wood cement, or a lot of different cements like that, when they dry rigid, or they dry hard, and they dry much easier to get off, instead of having the solvents inside the glues that make them soft, pliable, and sticky. So give it a few minutes to dry, and you'll be amazed. It'll wipe right off. All right, so let's pull this. Make sure that seam just gets stuck under there. Very good. Let's lay flat. Make sure our bottom is lined up. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. Okay. So see how it keeps wanting to fold over? I'm going to make sure that that's flat. So we do like this, and then pinch it there, like this, come in, fold over. And time is kind of the essence, because as the glue dries, it gets less sticky and less able to stick to that. All right, now let's check our measurement. How close are we? We are at the top seam. just under 3 inches. We are at 2 7/8. Pretty close. I think that's actually going to work really well once we get it stitched up and everything. It'll do real nice. Let's go find out, okay? How about we go stitch this? So as you can see, the gusset has been installed. We're about to stitch it. We're going to stitch it just under a number 2 stitch because I want it to be kind of a nice fine stitch. I am using a black bobbin thread, even though the interior is black and tan. I'm using black bobbin thread because black is the top, and that's what most people are going to see if they look at the boot from any angle. That's the stitching that they'll see, so we want that to match. All right, so I'm going to start just above the gusset itself to make sure that I don't have anything slip out the top side. All right, and we want to keep it close to the edge, nice tight stitch. So this is the bottom of the gusset. This is where the attachment point is. The reason it stopped right there is because it reached the edge of the lining. We're going to take it up one, lift up the foot, bring the actual material up over that mark so you don't just pull it and create a wrinkle. You put your foot back down. Continue nice slow stitch here because we're going to do a little bar tack right at the bottom. The bar tack's going to come back and forth. Just 3 or 4 times. Don't want to make it so big that it's unsightly, but you do want to make sure that it is strong right there because that is the weakest point of the job. Once again, just go a stitch past the gusset itself. Let's see how we did. And we caught that. We're a little loose here, but we caught it down the bottom. It'll stay just fine. So, therefore, we have a successful job. See? Nice and stretchy. And that glue spot I showed you before, watch this. Now as glue spot no more. When I do the cleaning, that'll completely disappear. But you don't have to worry about it. It turns out better if you don't. See? Yeah. Not very good. Yeah, it'll do it better when we clean it. Don't worry about it. All right, well, that's the gusset. We're just going to tie that off and make it look pretty. So we tied off the stitches, and I wanted to show you the beginning product and the finished product. So finished product, see, nice tight stitching all the way down the line. While she's walking down the street, nobody's going to really notice that. It's going to look good, especially after we get it all cleaned up and, you know, blended in. She's got 3 inches more material on the top, plus, if you look, got a good bit of expansion. She gets another 1.5 inches of expansion. Now that's going to rest right up against the back of her thigh. Her knee is going to be roughly about right here. That's why we wanted to make this nice and smooth with the tuck and roll, everything that's going in there. Now this is what we started off with. Our product, you can see this seam right here. That's how we started. This is what we ended with. Not too bad. Okay, so that's installing an elastic gusset in the top seam. There are other ways of doing elastic gussets. We'll do other videos on those. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much. Join us next time.